Exactly one day before I would begin my work from home role with my job, I would begin to make plans. Plans for a little trip. This trip would be for I and the wife, and of course the daughter, to go out see the sights of the new town. Not really much to see though. I made the date for that afternoon, and it wouldn't be too eventful. We would visit the local park, go to the town square, and we would meet a few people along the way who would politely introduce themselves, and we would pass through. On a particular moment, a man would tell us of a place that we could go to just north of the town. This was a national forest area with a few large caves. We thought it'd be a good idea one day to make plans for this, and so we thanked him as we departed. We did a few more things. After we had dinner, we decided to head back home. As we pulled into the driveway, I saw a young boy running away from the front porch of our house. It looked like he had set a folded up piece of paper on the front porch. As he looked up, he saw us, and then he fled. He ran away. We walked up to the porch, and I reached down and picked up the paper. Chloe said, "No, Daddy, don't." I did it anyways, and it was a picture of that damn big black cat creature thing that Chloe drew me a while back. I didn't let her see it though. I told them to go ahead into the house ahead of me, and I would be in there in just a few minutes. As they walked into the house, I sat down on the stairs of the porch. It felt like it was getting cold outside. I was starting to chill. It felt like it was getting cold outside. I was starting to chill. It looked as it was getting darker outside. I looked down at my watch, only to see that it was still too early to be getting as dark as it was. All I did was stand up and say aloud and clearly, I cleared my throat, "What do you want from me?" I heard nothing. Was getting tired of all the things that had been going on for the past years. I said again, "What do you want?" A voice said, "To fulfill my life." A voice said then again, but in a quieter tone, "Finish what you started. I'll help you." This, of course, was all I had to hear. I turned around and I walked inside, and I told Helen that I'd be going upstairs and I'd be back in a little bit. She looked puzzled until she saw that I was still holding the piece of paper, and that she knew that I was going up to my office. And I heard her say, "You must be going to go right." I gave her a kiss and off I went. A host of thoughts bridled my mind as I stared at the computer screen. Should I do it? I thought to myself. And then I remembered what I had saw earlier. It was that boy. I thought that the way that the boy ran off, it was him that reminded me to write in the first place. In fact, that boy, though he was a bit older in real life, he looked just like the boy in my dream. The boy that said I was to write a story about him, but had to begin with a young girl. I didn't know who this girl was though, but I knew I would at some point. So, I began to write and write. What went on for only seemed like a few minutes was actually apparently some kind of lull. Some kind of lull in time. A point in time in which I had actually written quite a bit in that period of time, and I looked up at the clock on the wall to see that it was 3 in the morning. Shit. I jumped up to my feet in a frantic mess. I ran out of the office door to see nothing but darkness. I could hear the clock in my office ticking, and since it was just behind me, back through the door. I wandered on down the stairs and sat down on the couch, and I thought, had Helen even come to check on me last night? Or even, did she tell me good night? This was something strange of huge proportions to me. While sitting in the dark on the couch in the living room, I began to, of course, get sleepy. Before I could get up to go back upstairs to bed, I began to hear something. A bit cliche, I know. Though it was faint, it was definitely loud enough to hear what it was. It sounded like a growl. That's all I knew, a growl. It was a growl that reminded me of a lion or something, or just a large cat, feline. The growl happened 4 or 5 times until I began to sweat. I had cold chills run up my spine like never before. I stood up and walked outside to get a breath of fresh air, I thought. That was when I heard it. Well, the second thing that I heard anyways. I heard, "Alan, release me." I actually talked back and said, with a firm voice and as firm as I could, "No." I shook it off and I walked back inside. I went back upstairs. This time I was going to my bedroom and lay down beside my wife to bring me some sort of comfort, and then I would fall fast asleep. The next morning was a blur. Much of a blur, indeed. It kind of felt like I had laid waste to the time that I had spent. And since I only had a couple days left before that I would begin the work of my job from home, while I was in the kitchen making some coffee and breakfast, the sound of my daughter Chloe coming into the kitchen to greet me with, "I love you, Daddy." This would definitely be a good way to start off the day, right? Then the wife stepped in and said good morning. She would then ask me how my writing session went, and I would tell her that it went well, with the exception of time flying by. I also told her that I must be having some fun because it was like characters were just starting to come alive. And it was like I was in a meeting with some of them. Helen asked me which one that I had a conversation with, and she kind of snickered a little bit. She laughed. I told her that I didn't know, but it did growl at me before it spoke. I tried to be as assertive as I could. My daughter heard what I had just said as well, and she laughed as well. Helen just kind of gave the little nod of her head, said, "Oh." After we ate breakfast and talked, Helen and Chloe went out to run some errands, and I went upstairs to take a nap. Only thing was, though, I couldn't sleep, so I wandered back into my office to turn the computer back on to only play games for a while.